you know, as we did. No, even they had personnel changes.
Only because they had screwed.
I had problems.
I think that's in itself is inspiring to people as well. I mean, I mean, that used to inspire me anyway. I mean, I know that if bands were constantly changing personnel, I used to think, well, what's wrong with their general ideas? What's wrong with their thinking then? You know, why? I mean, I felt that with the pop group. I felt very sort of disillusioned when they, you know, didn't hold it together, because I used to really, I never liked their music very much, but I used to very much respect what they were trying to do, and I felt really disappointed when they ceased to do it, because it meant that obviously, you know, there was a big ego somewhere in there. Well, that's what I thought. You know, and I think that probably was the case. You know,
or that being successful simply becomes an end in itself.
Yes, I'm not sure that did happen with them.
The means to becoming successful starts to become the end, because you become obsessive about it.
Yeah.
So if the band, if Crass can't play concerts anymore, they can release records still?
Yes. Yeah.
And they are about to?
Well, we are about to. I mean, we've had material hanging around, stuff that the thing we're about to release, we finished work on at the beginning of the year, and we haven't had the money and been able to risk, you know, financially putting it out, which, I mean, we can afford just about to put it out now. And that we're not going to do anything else until basically we've paid back our debts, because it feels wrong, you know. I mean, I think unless something is, if something isn't self-supporting, then
because yes, and sorry, just pick up on that a minute, because it was, I always understood that you were a self-supported, you were a self-supporting group,
right.
And that you had, as far as I knew, you had as much control over your records and how they were released and what price they should be sold at, and I mean, right down the line, more than any other group that
absolute total control.
Because obviously this was part of your ideology, and you were able to impose that.
Yeah. Well, we have imposed it, and I mean that is the case.
That still is the case.
Yes. What has happened, however, is that
how from being self-supporting, you now say that Crass is in debt.
Yeah, I mean,
is this simply the fact of not having put out records, or is?
No, it's simply the fact of spending huge amounts of. I mean, for example, we produced a record by a band called Hit Parade. You know, we wanted to put a greater focus on what was happening in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. We put out a single by Hit Parade. If we looked at our books, the last band we should have been putting a record out by was Hit Parade, because they sold less than any other band we'd put out. But we weren't looking at the books, we were looking at the political situation. We spent an enormous amount of money. I mean, it was, well, in our terms, an enormous amount of money. I mean, probably 10,000, something like that, you know, on producing the record. That's a lot for us. And I mean, I don't know how many we've actually sold of it, you know.
I think it's 1,600.
We can't sell it. I mean, it's great. We'll give you a copy. It's great. It's great music. You know, it's very. We deliberately sort of disco orientated it, etc., etc., make it accessible. But I mean, the ideas aren't accessible. I mean, they're not. People don't want to hear about Northern Ireland. We know they don't want to hear about Northern Ireland, which is why we did it. We used to.
But that's, I mean, sorry. I mean, that's in essence what you were doing yourselves.
Yeah.
For a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And
we could all.
You weren't dressing those ideas, I think.
No, we could. Well, we could
You
always.
just said that you had tried to make that record accessible. that that was perhaps
No, I don't think.
That was the guy's idea too. It came from him. He wanted to do it that way.
Yeah.
But our ideas alone weren't enough. I mean, we didn't know. I mean, we were sometimes criticised. Well, we were certainly criticised by Hit Parade for not making, Northern Ireland sufficient of an issue in our material. I mean, we certainly never avoided the subject, but we didn't make it an issue, and a major issue, simply because we don't know about it enough. So we basically said, well, okay, then you do it. We haven't got the information. We're not living there. We can give a sort of second-hand view of it, but it's much more important. If we'd done it, we'd have sold 20 times more. But that's not the point. The point is that he and the band were the people who are living it. They're the people who've also got to take the result of living with it. I mean, they've got to take the flak, so they know what to say effectively, how to say it, how their covert action should be, etc., etc. I mean, there's a lot of danger of people, sort of living in the southeast of England, to start sort of pontificating about the situation in Northern Ireland, as you must know. Well, it's financial suicide to do something like that. Well, I mean, we have a very good arrangement with the studio now, whereby we effectively can work on credit. Well, I mean, the reason we're in the shit is that we've been working on credit for too long. And, I mean, with all due respect to the studio, they're quite happy for us to go on doing that. They're not saying you can't come in. We're not happy about doing it because if effectively we can't finance our own affairs, then we're fundamentally sort of putting forward it's a sort of dishonesty. I don't know if you can understand that.
There's also the thing of having worked, I mean, that's the currency we've used for the last 8-9 years, working in the music business, working with records. 2,000 sales of a record in our terms is not terrific. It's certainly historically not a good sale for a record. And so if those ideas, in our terms, they're only reaching 2,000 people, then maybe there is another avenue, or if there should be another avenue that we can use somewhere, somehow, that will get those ideas out better. And so, to simply say, well, we're record producers, we're record makers, I'm a guitarist, he's a drummer, we've got to keep going, this we've got to do. It would seem crazy, to put aside the money issue. We can't afford to do it, but even if we could, why just keep ploughing them out for 2,000 or 1,000 or 500 or however many?
And one of the reasons we sold so many records about 3 or 4 years ago was because there wasn't that sort of choice. Our records were uncomfortable. People did want them, but they also didn't want them. The ideas were uncomfortable, and what's happened over the past 3 or 4 years is that things have become diluted. People are catering for the people who don't want the heavy stuff anymore.
Well, that was evident on that John Peel show, because it sounded, I mean, if you didn't, I couldn't hear the words anyway, but what I could hear of the words was, people wanted that music, but they just didn't want the fucking ideas to go with it, so you remove the ideas and you plod some sort of the old rock and roll cliches on top of it, and you've got sort of a saleable commodity, that sort of happened, so it is quite possible that a large number of the people who used to buy our records, bought them because they were excited by the sounds, the weird, strange, noisy noise of Crass, which has now been, the message has been removed. You don't have to buy that. You can just buy some blah about, the girl down the road in the Corvette car or whatever it is. And that's a better commodity, and it is a better commodity, I was thinking in terms of commodity.
No, ironically, you've just done a load of reader research which backs that up completely. Which people, our readers...
But that's frightening, isn't it?
Yes, they are not interested, and neither do they associate, they no longer associate rock music with ideas, and they just regard it as entertainment. They don't believe that it has any social force.
But
the tragic thing is
that it doesn't matter what people believe, there's no point. Punk and beat and it doesn't matter what people believe, it's what they are.
Yeah, well,
Respond
but
and
what's
people.
happened this time round, whereas, I mean, people now can't sort of see the sort of revolutionary content of Elvis Presley's sort of early stuff, which was pure revolution. I mean, that was rock and roll, and it was a real strong message. I don't think rock and roll has ever been as sanitised as it is now. They've really got it sewn up, you know, like the threats are even sanitised, you know, the sort of ZZ Top or the, well, I don't know if that's the right name, is it the right name? I don't know.
Probably not, actually.
Maybe
That's right, yeah, Six Sputnik, and those Nazi
love
people we saw at the, or pseudo-Nazi people we saw at the Throbbing Gristle thing, and
Oh, that lot, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's right, something like that.
Zodiac Mind War.
Yeah, and there are all these sort of people sort of playing danger, and it's not danger because it's totally fucking sanitised. They're not questioning themselves. They're putting on the sort of uniform of danger. Even when Bowie used to go out in his sort of like, I mean, he was a threat. You know, there's the sort of the sexual ambiguity was threatening. It threatened me anyway. I thought, fuck, you know,
But it isn't
where
that-
do I stand sexually in that? He was really questioning. Now it's just, you know, it's a piece of theatre, it's pantomime, and there isn't anyone.
Doesn't that mean that it's had its effect?
Yes,
if it has,
yeah.
now is a piece of pantomime,
Yeah.
and if
I'm
if
not
kids
demeaning
can see
that,
through
yeah.
it now,
Mhm.
doesn't that mean that it did have its effect?
Yes,
at the time?
I'm not demeaning what was happening then. What I'm saying is that there's no equivalent now. I don't think there's a sort of there's no questions being asked now. You know, I'm not that versed with what is actually happening. I mean, if there's a sort of rippling going on, then I always make it my job to hear what the ripple's about. There's nothing threatening. There's no real question. It isn't rock and roll. You know, and Bowie was rock and roll.
Yeah, but that's
you
all
know.
reflective. I mean, it always has been, hasn't it? I mean, it's like, you know, it's
I'd say the independent movement should not try and evolve and should not try and get bigger and should not be looking to try and hold on to a band like the Smiths. That if a band like the Smiths starts achieving their kind of popularity, then they really are the province of the major label, and the independent network is for something different. But there are others who are saying, well, no, in order to survive, the independent movement must use larger names and hold on to bands who come up through them.
But then
so
that's-
there's a lot of that going on.
But then that's a sort of, yeah, but that's a sort of cynical approach because the interests there are self-interest, aren't they? I mean, I remember we actually went to Rough Trade as a distributor just after Stiff Little Fingers had left them. They felt terribly disillusioned at the time. You know, they'd lost their big name, and they didn't rub their hands together when we came along. They were really pleased that, you know, they thought there was a band of commitment, you know, come along. That's how it used to be. And, you know, we did stick with them through, you know, and as a lot of adverse criticism started coming through about what was going on there, etc., you know, we still stuck with them and the cartel, because we still believed in the principles that we'd first, you know, felt were expressed when we first went to Rough Trade, their little back room, and sort of sat around with a coffee machine, you know. And, I mean, and even when one turned up at Rough Trade and couldn't get to see any of the people who ran Rough Trade because they were behind glass doors talking to important people, you know, one still said, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously they were busy today, and they're busy tomorrow, and they're busy the next day, and they're busy for the next fucking month. But you still keep going because it's, you know, when you find that, you know, the WEA tie-ups, and I mean, that is disillusioning. I mean, I was saying earlier, you know, we're not disillusioned. I mean, I'm very disillusioned with what happened in that context, because I believe we could have done it. You know, together we could have done it. None of us could do it on our own. We could have done it together. I was disillusioned when Stiff Little Fingers buggered off. I don't like the Smiths' music, but I was disillusioned when they buggered off. You know, I was disillusioned when who are the you know, socialist band, the Redskins, did it. I mean, what the fuck's going on? You know, we can all rationalise that way. We can all say, oh yes, we get to a bigger market. You know, we can all fucking do that. And that I do feel terribly disillusioned by that, because every time I want to believe in things just as much as people want to believe in us. I want to fucking believe in people. And every time you think, well, I don't quite agree with what they're saying, but I trust them. You know, I felt that with the Redskins. I thought, Christ, well, I'm not a socialist, and I'm certainly not an SWP member, but okay, they're doing it. I mean, I remember going and seeing The Clash really early on, and I felt so hurt. I mean, it's naive, you know. You think when you sort of got beyond 20 that you stopped getting hurt by things like that, you know. When John Lennon got his hair cut, I felt hurt. Well, I was sort of quite young then. You know, when The Clash sort of sold out, I was really, really hurt, you know, and the trouble is, so were they, you know, and the same with the Pistols. I wanted to believe in them, because if you can believe in, I mean, almost, and this is a dreadful thing to say, but maybe if you can believe in people, it takes some of the responsibility off you believing in them. You know, if they'd been honest, then we wouldn't have to have been double honest. We wouldn't have to knacker ourselves trying to make up. You know, most of our time we were trying to prove to people, you know, that we weren't going to do it to them. Everyone's been waiting for years for us to sell out. You know, the slightest little opportunity. We didn't even used to go on fucking holidays. We didn't give ourselves a holiday in 8 years because we were worried someone might fucking see us getting on the boat. And I'm being serious. You know, we didn't take holidays because if the kid up in Glasgow who wrote to us couldn't have a holiday, then we fucking weren't having a holiday.
The thing is, what's happened since, you know, people are grasping after any little thing to say we sold out. You know, when we brought out that double album of the old single, the number of phone calls that told us we'd sold out because we'd done it in colour, you know, and that the price was up, you know, and all that really indignant phone calls, you know. And it was like, it was very difficult not to be angry and rude on the phone, really. I mean, what do you want, blood or something? Christ almighty, you know.
And very difficult not, you know, and when you're, I mean, it's not as if our record label is 20,000 quid down. We're fucking 20,000 quid down as a result of what we're doing, you know. So it's not, you know, we're sitting here with, you know, the bread on the table and whatever we can afford to eat. But basically speaking, no one's going to get nasty with us about it, but we are 20,000 quid down, or we were last time we looked into the books. And that's a lot of money, you know. So when we sort of say, well, okay, we can't afford to put this record out for sort of 2 and 6pence, which is what we've done with a lot of our records, you know, we're going to have to ask a sort of vaguely sensible, there's this outrage, you know, how dare you letting it, we'll probably get some sent back sawn in half like we have with some of our other things, you know, because they don't conform to other people's idea of how we ought to be behaving.
I mean, we've had complaints about the compilation because it was in the colour cover. And it's that it's that serious. If we dare to put colour on, then we definitely sold out some magical way.
And they broke their cover trying to run it
again. Isn't this then the problem of? I mean, you are caught in other people's expectations of you.
Well, if you, that's why one has to stop. One could see that, and you could see the drift you were being pulled towards. But you know, you do choose to stop and consider and reconsider, not because you don't care. On the contrary, you know, you do care.
Strange that the compilation of our singles, which we started out, the reason we did it was we had all these singles on the shelves we had to keep carting around. We thought, right, we'll put them all on 1 or 2 records, get them out of the way, no longer have to muck about with these things which are 8 years old.
We couldn't afford them anyway to repress all the time.
And people who've heard it, they're not hearing like, you know, one at a time. They're hearing a whole sort of, and even ourselves, listening to the whole range of things, right? You get some sense of the picture and on the sort of slightly chaotic nature of what was going on. You do get a sort of a retrospective of, you know, what we've actually been up to, and something else emerges through it. Not that, you know, if you listen to the whole compilation, you can see that we're not exploiting. You can see we're not ripping off. You know, if you've got the stuff. I haven't had any of those complaining phone calls.
And I suppose the other thing, I mean, cynically, you would be the exception if you didn't sell out, because
we know that, but we can't. It's not in one's nature to do so.
Yes, I mean that, I suppose, is why people sit there waiting for you to sell out, because they know that soon. I mean, they are simply convinced that sooner or later they will, and almost they want that to be.
Well, I told you so. I told you.
Yeah, exactly. It gets to that point.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it takes everyone off the hook.
Almost, they want that to be
Well, I told you so. Told you.
Yeah, exactly. It gets to that point.
Yeah.
Well, it takes everyone off the hook as well,
right.
because as long as one is sort of, as long as we continue, which I know we will, to sort of question and to struggle and to sort of fight for what we think's right, you know, even if that just means gardening for the next 10 years, because that's the best we can do. We'll go on doing that, and we'll go on. You know, that's why it was important to us, you know, to find a voice, you know, because we couldn't do it in our conventional way. Because we'll go on doing our best. We'll go on trying to sort of make it a better place to be, if you like. Not, you know, it's not us that's making it better, or just to open the doors, or whatever, however you put it. I don't know how one puts it, but and I mean, I don't understand selling out. I mean, I've never understood what it means, what it entails, what it offers, because it doesn't. I mean, there's nothing there. You know, what we were saying earlier about all the objects and the paraphernalia of life is meaningless. You know, there's something real that we've got to be looking for. You know, and that's all Crass was ever doing, was looking for something real. And maybe we didn't really find it in the end. We certainly got a long way along a path, you know, and that was good, you know, and maybe the path's just going around a funny corner at the moment or whatever. But we'll go on doing that, and you are right, you know, cynically, you know, we'd be the exception, because most people don't enter into it, and don't have the privilege, and don't have the fortune. It was a very hot week in summer, and we decided we had to have somewhere to dip, and we didn't think of what it actually entailed, so we got that far, and that's it.
Sweating profusely, that's it.
On the next stage, a large plastic lining.
Oh, we found out it wasn't practical. I think it's going to turn into a compost heap.
Come in, jump in. Die.
I'm going to take a chair.
Just a big telecom.
What are all the lumps
There is a military place as well.
Oh, they're the old tie bars for the
aerial.
Oh, the aerial. Come on, G, come and get in the pit.
Come on.
Isn't Steve coming?
You didn't want to be photographed in the hole in the ground?
I didn't.
Because most of his life in well, I can't.
Can you sort of close up a bit?
Get down a bit as well. Or
Sort of, no, I think it's alright, yeah. Can you sort of lock up a bit so you sort of catch it?
catch it.
Darker by the second.
Yeah.
Go on, Wilkie.
Have you seen those Minolta autofocus things? Nice, aren't they?
A friend of mine's got them.
Yeah.
16 batteries.
Is it really?
Really?
The winders.
Yeah.
Take a long shot. Red lid.
It makes you all go a bit paler. Got a bit more contrast.
Bit paler. Oh my god.
I've been working on the sun tunnel fucking summer.
Yeah, that's right.
you looking serious?
Same old people ending
Interesting shopping.
Sees him walking.
Come on, G, come and sit here.
Come on, you can be skeet.
There's enough missing.
I'll stand behind.
What are you doing down there?
The cat's eye view.
Quick, get the shovel. That's what it's for.
Last time I felt one of them was a yeah. A closed peg on his nose. Yeah.
What's that coming over there?
Oh, look at that tube. Everybody looking up. Oh!
Is this the flight path out of Sunset? It isn't.
No, not
Turned
quite.
over by then. My parents didn't wish to stop.
There's one over there.
Yeah.
Stansted.
Yeah. At the height of the season, you pay for